their lives brutally cut short in a horrific car crash. Saskia was 10 at the time, old enough to be grief-stricken, but not old enough to deal with the trauma of so much loss. It was weeks before she could let her father leave the house without becoming hysterical with terror that he wouldn't return. It had been Harvey, her mother's father, who had put forward the suggestion that it would help them all if they set up home together, that her father shouldn't be left to cope on his own, that actually none of them should be left to cope alone. Within 8 months, they had pooled their resources and moved here. The moment Saskia had set eyes on Ashcombe, she had fallen in love with it. It was the most beautiful house she had ever seen. A rambling Suffolk pink cottage on the edge of the village of Melbury Green, flanked by the open fields and the River Stour to the rear of the 2-acre garden, and a minor road that twisted and turned through the softly undulating Suffolk countryside. To the west, the road took you towards Cambridge, and to the east, to the beaches of Southwold and Aldborough. With its immaculate thatched roof and ornate ridge, its sloping pink walls covered with climbing roses, and an orchard filled with apple, pear, and damson trees, it was fairy tale perfect. From the day they moved in, the house beguiled them, and became their sanctuary, an enchanting and secluded oasis in which, very slowly, the healing process could begin. "There you are," her father greeted her when she pushed open the door to the kitchen and instantly felt the warmth from the Aga. "We were thinking of sending a search party to find you. Happy birthday." "Yes, dear girl, happy birthday," chimed in Grandpa O, taking her by the arm and steering her towards the table where a small pile of presents and cards had been laid out in front of her usual seat. 32, Grandpa Harvey said with a chuckle, kissing her on the cheek. "That sounds like a properly grown-up age to me." "It sounds worryingly ancient to me," Saskia said with a grimace. "What nonsense! Now sit down, and your every birthday whim and desire shall be attended to. What can I make you for breakfast?" "You know, I think I'll risk some scrambled eggs this morning." "Good choice, even if I say so myself. Would that be with toast, maybe with a rasher or two of bacon on the side? Look lively, Oliver, don't just stand there, pour the girl some tea." All right, Grandpa O said with a roll of his eyes. "No need to nag." Saskia smiled fondly at the pair of them as they flapped and bustled and bickered around her in their pyjamas and dressing gowns, in what she called their Laurel and Hardy routine. They were, she knew, giving an exaggerated performance for her birthday, in the hope it would distract her from the unavoidable shadow cast over the day. Despite their own loss, their wives, and a daughter, they had always tried their best to make sure her birthday wasn't lost in the sadness of their collective grief. But in reality, her birthday could not be anything but complicit in forcing them to look back and remember. However, for Saskia, the passing of another year was a reminder that the future was more of a concern to her than the past. Her grandfathers, though in reasonably good health, were not getting any younger, and the thought of one day losing them caused her immeasurable sadness. She looked at her father and could see from Ralph's expression that he knew what she was thinking. He usually did. When she had been studying for her A-levels, she had announced one Saturday, while she'd been working in the family-run antiquarian bookshop, that she had no interest in going to university. 3 years of pointless study would bore me rigid, she'd said. "And what exactly do you plan to do instead?" her father had asked, barely looking up from the catalogue he was preparing. "I'll work here with you, of course," she'd responded. "And when I'm not doing that, I'm going to learn how to restore books, so you won't have to pay the exorbitant fees Franklin Reed charges you." Giving her his full attention, he'd said, "How long have you been cooking up this little scheme?" "Long enough to know it's what I want to do. Please, Dad, don't make me go to university just for the sake of it. I won't fit in, and I'll be as miserable as hell. It would also be a shameful waste of money." With hindsight, it hadn't been that difficult for her father to guess at what was really uppermost in her mind.